days apart, we're all links in the chain. Hey guys, it's Lilly coming to you live from Las Vegas, Nevada.
And it's LindaRose coming to you live from Maine.
This episode we has an amazing interview, and I'm so excited to get to share it with you guys today.
Yeah, this interview is so good, and also I'm apologize. My computer has been glitching a little bit on StreamYard, so I am on my phone today while I'm trying to figure that out. But this interview mainly is just such a good interview. I'm really happy we did it. It gave a lot of good insight, and it's a job that we've never had anyone interviewed with on here before.
Absolutely. I loved getting to hear her responses. She had great responses. Like, seriously, her explanations and everything were amazing. And she just had lots of great advice and everything, too. So I'm so excited to get to share it with you guys today.
Yeah, so I hope you guys enjoyed this interview as much as we did.
Bye. Hi, Alana. Thanks so much for coming on to do this interview with us today.
Hi, Lily May and LindaRose. Thank you for having me.
For the first question tonight, I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about what got you interested in becoming a lawyer.
Oh, okay, sure. I actually kind of had a strange path to becoming a lawyer. It's something I always kind of thought about. My family on my dad's side was in the Holocaust, and so I always grew up learning about laws and learning about, sometimes there's a discrepancy between what the system does that is correct and what the system is doing that's not correct. And so I feel like there was always that lurking in the background. I actually was interested in doing a lot of other things. I knew I wanted to be some kind of performer, but I can't act and I can't sing. And I wasn't that interested in piano, which I took for a little while. But I was obsessed with courtroom around the time, I'd say like in the early 90s, courtroom TV started coming on TV. And I would just sit there for hours watching like about parking tickets, watch, any kind of trial. It didn't matter what it was. I would just sit there and absorb everything. And so, it was always kind of in the back of my head, but I actually set out to be a theater professor. And I have an MFA, a Master of Fine Arts, in something called dramaturgy, which is the study of theater, like how theater is created. And when I graduated with my MFA was the year 2000. It just was a really awful market for professors. Nobody was moving. The arts were being even, more defunded than they already had been. And so I knew I was all set up to go do performance art at NYU. And I thought before I go get a PhD, I should, go look at my other options. And I actually ended up doing legal publishing at LexisNexis. And it was, kind of brought back what I was interested in before. And I was really looking for a career that I wouldn't be bored with. Like everything that I had done before had like a shelf life. Like I was an editor, and then I felt like I was kind of done. And then I was a writer, and then I felt like I was kind of done. So I wanted some kind of career that there was always something to do, and I never felt like I would be done. So I was thinking, I had a couple options, but law just seemed like the one that made the most sense with everything else that I had been working on. In addition, my studies in performance art, I studied about the NEA defunding, with the National Endowment for the Arts defunding of some performance artists in the 80s. So I was already studying about, you know, a lot of legal aspects of art in theater. And I've always also volunteered for some kind of like rape crisis or domestic violence group. So, you know, it just seemed to make sense with everything that I had been doing, and, you know, that I was brought up to like search for justice, kind of, to make sure that, you know, I've always been the kind of person, like, if somebody is being picked on, or if some, you know, much to my danger sometimes, I will actually, you know, stand up and take matters into my own hand, which again is not always the smartest thing. But being a lawyer just seemed like, you know, I got a card that said I get to do that. You know, I get to make sure that the system is working, and I get to make sure that there's some sort of justice occurring.
Wow, absolutely. And I loved getting to hear your answer to that. It was such a great one. And I was really interested in getting to hear about the backstory of what first got you into becoming a lawyer.
Yeah, it was a great answer. I mean, you didn't really give like a simple answer. You gave more an in-depth one, which can give people a different point of view, which is really, really awesome. And our next question is, can you talk to us about your journey being in law and stuff like that?
Sure. So when I was doing legal publishing, I actually was an editor for a series of state corporate titles. And most non-attorney editors didn't have their own books, but they basically gave me a series of books that were like nobody could help them. Like they were drowning, and they were not really going to not, you know, nobody wanted to buy them. And then I turned it around. You know, I was like, well, let's, you know, pick this random state, and there's got to be something that's happening there. So I started calling my authors, and I started telling them, you know, instead of just send me the normal updates, which is why there were, I think, 8 series of books. You know, that's why they're failing. So I'm like, what about this topic in this state? What happened with this? And at that point, you know, my authors all thought I was an attorney, because I actually was doing legal research, and I was talking to them. I just wanted these books. I mean, I wanted to prove that an editor can do this, and, you know, you don't have to. I felt bad for the books, honestly. So they were going to offer me. So I know how to do like graphic design and I did layout, and I know how to edit books. And there was a handoff process. So somebody would do the layout part, and somebody would do the editor part. And I kind of mixed the process, because I felt that it would be more efficient if one person did it. So they were about to promote me to give me my own team to do this, to see if this would work. And I just thought, I'm almost 30. I was almost 30 at the time. I thought, if I don't go to law school now, I'm going to look back in, you know, 20 years and be a manager of this team. There wasn't much movement in the company unless you had a law degree. So it just seemed like I didn't want to get too comfortable. And, you know, going to law school is scary. So I thought, let's pick up and go do that.
Wow, and that you're so inspiring too. I love getting to hear all of that. There was so much great information in there. I was wondering, do you think your past helped influence your career choices and what you wanted to do in your life at all?
Well, so I think one advantage that I have, one really big advantage I have that a lot of people don't have, is there wasn't really any kind of career that was out of range. I grew up in a privileged, upper middle class neighborhood in Pittsburgh called Squirrel Hill. We're friends, and my family consists of a ton of doctors and lawyers, and so it was never like it was always something that was just totally possible and available. So growing up privileged in that way, it wasn't, it was difficult to pick up at 30 being so comfortable, and I was in New York City at the time, and go to law school. But the idea of being a lawyer, my uncle, who I consider one of my dads, and my first cousin, who I consider one of my big brothers, they both are attorneys. So it wasn't, it was always something that was on the table. So it was what do I think is going to keep me interested? And I know that in my life, as I said, there have always been instances of people who, everybody runs into people who bully people. In high school, I was astonished because I actually was friends with some skinheads, like they believed they were real skinheads. And I had conversations with them about, you're talking to me and I'm Jewish. And they're like, well, but you're okay. And that became a really big theme for me, was like, you're okay because, we like you or we want to spend time with you, but that person's not okay. And some people would be okay with that. But to me, like, that's not okay. I'm not going to have you be nice to me, and I have all of these things about me that make me a minority, and then you're going to turn around and abuse somebody else. Like, if you're with me and that's not going to happen, So I think seeing that, knowing I had the opportunity to be an attorney, and seeing honestly some of the hypocrisy that was going on in my neighborhood and, within my religion, because when you grow up so embroiled in a religion, you can't, it's in your face, you can't help but see it. So I felt like I could do something about that.
Yeah, I think that it's important to not let people control who you are, and kind of be your own person no matter what people say, which I know can be hard for a lot of people. But in reality, doing that and not letting people control you is so important, because that can make your mental health in such a better place.
The fact that my family was in the Holocaust and that I was first generation, American on my dad's side, like, you're reading about it constantly. I went to a day school, so justice versus injustice is like a constant theme going through your life too. So I think that's also why there were so many people who are attorneys who are Jewish, and because I was around them, it just seemed like something that was important to do and that would be beneficial to society.
Yeah, that's really important. And I'm very happy you got into law, because now we get to have this amazing interview.
Thank you.
So how did your inspirations and hopes help drive you? Like, how did maybe you had like your dad or was your inspiration or something? How did that drive you to kind of be like, I want to do this, so I'm going to do it?
Honestly, I somehow just have a really strong moral compass. Like, I just always have, and it's probably because of my background and because of what, my grandparents went through, and, on my mom's side too. They were in Eastern Europe, so they had to, my grandmother was Ukrainian, so she's constantly fleeing from Russians, and they had difficult lives too. So I think that really, yeah, it was just this, I always felt, so in Judaism, you name your children after somebody who's deceased. And I was always told, and it was always impressed upon me, that my name, my middle name is Rachel, which is actually Rachel. And there's a girl who lost her life in Majdanek in a concentration camp when I don't know how old she was, but she was young. And that's who I'm named after. So you kind of carry this burden with you also. Well, it's a burden, but it's also a good thing because you always feel like you need to contribute and like you make a difference in the world. So like you're living for yourself, but you're also living for this person that didn't get to live, so you kind of keep that in mind. And I think I was very, very heavily influenced, knowing that it was, that I was living for people that didn't get the opportunity to do so.
Wow, yeah, and I love getting to hear you talk a little bit about that. What were some of the challenges, or if you ran into any challenges that you ran into while being a female lawyer?
Wow. Being a female lawyer in being a trial attorney and being a public defender, I got a lot of clients who were shocked that I was their lawyer because they didn't know public defenders were so cute. And then you're just sitting there and you're like, did you tell that guy that? Like when that guy represented you, did you tell him that? And you're like, you walk this fine line between you want to look nice and you don't want to look, it's not as buttoned up black suit and tie as it used to be, or it wasn't, I think I stopped being a trial lawyer in almost 2014. And so, you could look a little cute. There's this one attorney that I really admired who would wear different shoes every day so that the jury would be really interested in her shoes and thus draw attention to her, so like you want it, you're performing, but you're also a lawyer and your client's also looking at, who knows, 20 years in prison, and they're telling you that you're cute. So that was always really weird for me.
Oh yeah, and I've always been super interested in law, so I'm loving getting to hear your answers on all of these questions.
Yeah, I mean, I do agree with you on that. It probably is a little weird when someone that you're defending who's going to get jail time calls you pretty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, so another thing that you have to do is you have to sit on what's called the pod. So when people first get admitted to jail, they go through a series of, stages until they get into the first place that they're going to stay. And the first place they're going to stay is called the pod. And the pod is basically a giant room and there's cells, and they give you, like, they literally set up for me a card table and like a folding chair in the middle of jail with all the cells around, and they're like, here, sit here, and you're like, I'm a girl. Like anybody, and it's all men, and there are, I don't even know how many men wandering around you, and the first few times that was really unsettling too, because I'm little, I'm 5'3", and so they look at you and they're just like, what are you going to do for us? And so you really have to learn how to speak big. Unfortunately, I have a big personality anyway. That was kind of a little difficult being a woman too. It's like, well, there's not really anything I can do to help myself, so I'm just gonna go with this and hope for the best.
Well, yeah, and it's so inspiring getting to hear all of your answers to these. Seriously, like it's so amazing, your journey with everything, and I'm loving getting to do this interview and talking to you for a little bit too.
I am too. I really appreciate you guys.
So happy you were getting to film this because it's such a fun interview.
Oh,
So for our next question, what was the most rewarding part about being in law or being a lawyer?
So I did a few different types of law. One of the things that I liked about criminal law the most, and specifically being a public defender, which my internship, and there were some other, I did other work on actually the district attorney and the attorney general side. And I was nervous about becoming a public defender for a number of reasons. One of them being that I'm raised in a privileged neighborhood, and I didn't really know how me going to speak to a certain population that they don't know me, I don't know them, how that would work out. It worked out fine. People just want to be heard and understood. I think for me, I really, really was glad that I was a public defender because, there's so many prejudices and there are so many times that people just judge people the second that they see them. And if somebody, I felt like if somebody saw me next to somebody that they would normally think is somebody to be afraid of, they would be less afraid of them. So like if I was in the middle of a trial and I'm sitting at the table defending my client and I lean over and I'm just talking to my client, just normal, I'm not nervous, I'm not scared, everything is fine, that person becomes more humanized than if they saw them, without somebody of, who's small, talking to them. It's a difficult thing to explain, but it's definitely true. When I would try to work out deals with police officers, the police officers would listen to me because I came from a neighborhood where police are friendly, and you have friendly Joe Friday, and he's your best friend, and he's going to help you if anything happens. And a lot of my clients, that's not, that they definitely did not come from that background. So the fact that I could be there with them and, interact with the police officers and work out certain things that otherwise might not have been able to be worked out, that really made a huge difference to me. And it really felt just that was correcting such a huge injustice.
Yeah. Thanks so much for coming on and talking a little bit to us about your experiences you've had in law and in your journey with law. For the last question tonight, what is a piece of advice that you have learned throughout your journey that you wish somebody would have told you when you first started?
I don't think anybody could have told me anything. I'm very stubborn. So what I've done is I've always faced my fear. Like, to be honest, when I kind of stumbled into criminal law, and I was very lucky because I became who I am, but it was scary. And I specifically wanted to be a trial attorney because I was terrified to be a trial attorney. And I think I've lived my life, even when I was younger, if something is scary, then you do it. Because if you do that which you're afraid of, you don't become less afraid. You just don't have as many limitations and restrictions. You see something like when I moved to New York City after college, I was really comfortable here in Pittsburgh. I did, a good job. There were a lot of opportunities, but I was terrified to move to New York And I was like, yeah, I have to go do this. Like, I can't just stay in Pittsburgh and not go see what else is out there. So there's always like this nagging feeling at me that's like, this is the scariest thing I can think of. And that's exactly what I recommend people do. You know, I mean, don't be stupid about it. But there's so many different opportunities and so many things that you would miss out on if you didn't let yourself do things just because you were afraid of them.
Absolutely. I really love that piece of advice. I think that's really important, is never to be afraid of doing something, especially if it's something you're really passionate about. Just never be afraid. Make sure you speak out. And I really, that piece of advice really resonated with me.
Yeah, I know that when you're scared of something, it's hard to go do that. I mean, when I started playing softball and I started going up against fast pitch, I was terrified because I was so used to having people going slow pitch. But the more you do it, the less scary it seems, except in my stomach. I'm still have that little knot in my stomach that's like, are you sure you want to do this? But it's such a good piece of advice, and thank you so much for coming on and doing this interview. It has been so much fun.
Thank you both so much. This has been really fun. I really appreciate it. I love your show.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah. And thanks so much for coming on. It's been so much fun getting to talk to you for a little bit, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.
You too. Thank you.
You're welcome. Wow, that was such an amazing interview. Just watching it back, it was like, wow, it was such great advice in there and everything. She talked about her journey a lot, and it was just so great to watch.
Yeah, I loved that interview. I love Alana, like, a lot. She's amazing, but I just loved the answers she gave. She went so in depth with her answers and it made it so interesting. It made you just want to keep listening and listening to what she's saying and take her advice. She just was really, really good at answering those questions.
Absolutely. I know I really love getting to listen to them, especially because I've always been really interested in law. So it was really cool to getting to hear her journey in her journey, and it was really great, and it was super interesting, and it was just so much fun getting to talk to her too. She was so easy to talk to.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean that I've always had some sort of an interest in law since I wanted to be an FBI profiler agent. I mean, the law plays a big part in that job, and getting to hear what goes on and how just what happens when she was in those jobs and what happened. I mean, she was just such an amazing person to interview.
Absolutely. Thank you guys all so much for watching, and make sure you guys tune into next week for another really fun interview. We've got so much really great stuff coming up, and I'm just so excited to get to share it with you all.
Yeah, we have so many amazing interviews lined up, some to film and some to share with you guys. Thank you guys so much for coming on and watching. I hope you guys all have an amazing day or night wherever you are.
See you guys next week. Bye.